Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is another in my practice session series for the Red Hat Certified Specialist in Managing Automation with Ansible Automation Platform EX467 exam. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as inviting anyone who has not subscribed yet to click that subscribe button. Also, a reminder that these are my practice sessions for the exam. My exam is in just over a week, and it's my opportunity to go through all of the objectives and either demonstrate whatever needs to be done for the objective or talk about the concept for the objective, in hopes that at the end of the video, when I do a little self-assessment, I'll feel pretty confident about the objective, as in if I have to deal with that objective on the exam, I'll probably do well, or I won't feel that confident about the objective and I have just over a week to brush up on any small or hopefully small knowledge gaps. That being said, these videos should not be considered tutorials, nor should they be considered training materials or authoritative information. I myself am still learning the stuff. I do try to have the information accurate because hopefully by this point I have not learned inaccurate information for my exam, but I put them out on the internet just to give folks who are also preparing for the exam an idea of this is what I do to try to prepare for it, and it might give you some ideas of what you can do. But just remember, these are not, official training materials by any means, nor should they be used as such. So moving along, we're getting into the manage inventories and credential set of objectives. And I don't think I'm going to do separate videos for each of these because many of them, are closely related to one another. And I think I can do a reasonable practice session, kind of hitting them all in a single video that hopefully doesn't go too long. So let me go into my controller node. I'm logging in as admin. All right, now there's a couple of ways of handling inventories. What I'm going to be doing for this video is probably not what I would do in production. In production, I would probably be using either an inventory file that comes from a project or, actually I take that back. Maybe if I was configuring a dynamic inventory that uses, a hypervisor as a source, I may configure that through the GUI, but again, in the production environment, I might try to do that through using the Ansible.controller collection and modules within. So what I'm going to start with is this idea of creating host groups and assigning systems to host groups. So what I'm going to do within inventories, and I'm a global admin for this, or not global admin, but the admin account. And we're going to add an inventory, and we are going to call this inventory test systems. Now I'm actually going to put this in the test org 1. Test org, I went ahead and made me a little test org and some test users. Just working with the permissions and such, I'd like to do that within a unique org versus just using the default org. So this inventory is going to be available to the test org, and that creates an inventory. Then after that, you can populate it with hosts. And actually, we're going to knock out two things at once here because it talks about assign systems to host groups and create host groups. Well, you can do both at the same time. So what you can do, instead of adding hosts and then later adding those hosts to a group, if you already know what you're going to do for your groups and such, you can go ahead and do that all at once. So we're going to add a group. We're going to call this dev servers. Click save. And for hosts, we can click add and then add new host. So I'm going to do lab node 1 .internal.ejslab.com. I'm going to copy this because I'm lazy for the next one. And so what that did was it went ahead and made a host called that, and it has added the host to the group dev servers. So maybe not saving a ton of time, but might, save you a step or so. So we're going to add another new host. This will be lab node 2 internal.ejslab.com. We're going to add another group. Oops, no, I see. Now I want to create a group. So let me go back to the test systems inventory. We're not adding a group to that group. Call this prod servers. And again, we'll add some new hosts. This is going to be lab node 3 and 4 for the prod servers. And we'll do this another way. So now we're just making lab node 4 within the test systems inventory. And from the host, we will add it to the prod servers group. So both ways of handling that. I'm going to make another inventory group. We're going to call this one all servers. And in this inventory group, we're going to add the two existing groups. So we have an all servers that's made up of dev and prod servers, and the dev and prod servers each have some individual hosts in them. So there's our hosts within the test systems inventory, and here are our groups in the test systems inventory. So looking back at the objectives, at least doing it the GUI way, we've made some host groups, we've assigned some systems to host groups, and let's do, before we go into like configuring access and all that good stuff, let us do a little test here just to make sure that our inventories actually will work. And this is also going to hit, I think, an objective that's not on the list and one that is. First, we're going to make a source control credential. I'll call it lab get. And this will be credential type source control. It's going to be cred for GitLab. I have a GitLab server on my little lab environment. And we are actually, yeah, we'll put this in test org 1. So that's what we're going to be working out of. And the username is going to be Eddie. And I'm actually going to use my SSH key for that. Of course, you can also just upload the file as well if you want. I'm choosing to copy it. Copy the private key. It's not protected by a passphrase. Probably if I were doing this with production, I would have that protected with a passphrase. All right, so we have the source control. There is one credential that's actually called out in the objective in this, and that's create and configure machine credentials to access hosts. Well, we'll go ahead and do that while we're in here. So we're going to add, I'm going to call it host cred, SSH credentials. We'll put this in the test org. You actually don't have to put a credential in an org if you don't want to. If you're making a credential just for that user to use, you could do that, but this is something that's obviously going to be shared by the org. Start typing in machine and that'll come up. So this also uses Eddie. I'm using the same SSH key, or you can provide it a password if you want. And I'll go ahead and configure privilege escalation stuff. It will be using sudo, and it will be becoming root when it does privilege escalation. All right, now this is outside of the official scope of this set of objectives, but I have a playbook that we can use to run to test our little inventories. So I'm actually going to add a project. We're going to call it inventory project. This project is going to be in the test org 1. It's going to be using Git, and let me go get the URL for that. So lab Git. You can see the highly creative name there of project 1. We'll be using SSH for this. So source control URL. We're just going to be using the main branch. The source control credential that will be used for this is lab Git. Click save. That should sync. Of course, famous last words in IT, should. All right, and that was successful. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to log in as a test user. I do not believe I'll be able to create a job template to test this. So if I can't, then I'll do that as the administrator. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and do that as the administrator because I'm fairly sure that the test user will not be able to create job templates. So we'll add a job template. We'll call it inventory test. It's a simple run template. The inventory that we will use is test systems. And the project this is going to come from is inventory project. I'll just use the default execution environment. Show the host is the playbook. It's going to use the host cred credential. Need any other special things for this. And this should work. Okay, good. So basically all it does is for everything in the inventory, it's configured to use all. It will basically tell you the host name, or it'll tell you the value of Ansible Facts host name. So we know basic inventory and such works. Now first of all, let me go into one of my test users, make sure they'll be able to run this job template. I figured that was the case. So we're going to fix some permissions here. Right now, when I made the organization users and teams, I did not do any permission granting. So we're going to the team that test user 1 is in. We're going to go to the roles, and we are going to go to job template roles. I'm just curious to see what's going to come up with this. Okay, so I can give it explicit permissions for the job template itself, and then inventories, of course, will be something that we are touching. But what I'm going to do is give it some organization roles, and we're going to give it execute, read. I think that should be all that it needs, because these users are not going to be managing stuff. They're just going to be executing things. So let's go back to our test user 1. And now we see our inventory test job template, and we have the action to be able to launch it, and it works as we expect. Now I can view the job template. I can see its details and such. I can see what inventory is set, but I can't actually configure stuff. So actually I am going to need to give it some more permissions. But anyway, so let's do this. Well, we've taken care of making machine credentials to access the hosts. We're going to configure access to inventories themselves. So I'll log back in as my administrator. And this is where, like in the real world, you really want to think through how you want permissions to propagate. Whether or not you do that at the project level or not project level, whether or not you want to do that at the team level or the individual user level. For this, just to demonstrate, I think I'm going to use the individual users level for this. So what we're going to do is go into our inventories, and for test system, we're going to click access, and we see our 2 administrative users. We're going to give, I guess we'll do it as a team. We give access to team 1. That's where test user 1 is. And what we're going to do is, let's see, can use inventory and job template. We're going to do use for this. Now what I'm also going to do is make a second inventory. We'll put it in the org, and we'll just add 1 host to it, just to where, there actually is an inventory of something. We are not granting any explicit permission to this inventory. I am going to go back to the test team, and I'm going to give them an organization role for test org 1 that will let them touch all of the job templates in the organization. All right, so we're going to log in as test user 1. And what I'm expecting to have happen is I can make a job template, and the inventories that would be accessible to me will probably be demo and the first of the test inventories to be able to use. So let's see what happens here. What, can I not make a job template? I can edit this one. Well, I guess I can check edit just to see if I can make a change there. No, I can't. This is odd. I expected to be able to have the rights to do that. Let me log out. Log back in as the admin. As I do these practice sessions, I get the feeling that permissions are probably going to be one of the greater challenges in the exam. Go to organizations. Yeah, job template admin and read. So I would think they should be able to create the job templates. That's access to input to particular job templates. Maybe there's another that I needed. Does it need workflow admin as well? Find it kind of ironic that I am basically getting caught on permission stuff that's not directly related to the thing that I was actually wanting to test and practice, but that's how it is. I'm just curious. Yeah, that has what I would expect to see permission-wise for test user 1. All right, let's log back in as test user 1 and see what happens. I guess that kind of makes sense because, well, I can add a workflow template, which that's not what I'm wanting to do. I'm wanting to add a job template. That is strange. Well, I guess I get to troubleshoot. Yeah, job template admin. All right, so let's try it the other way. I'm curious to see what'll happen because I do have, other sets of teams. So we're going to go into test org. We're going to do the access from the org perspective, which really shouldn't make a difference as far as I understand. We're going to give test team 2 the job template admin, also giving them execute, also giving them read. So now we see test user 3 that has job template admin. And let's see what happens if I go into this as test user 3. We can edit it. We can change the inventory for editing it. I guess this makes sense because we can pick an execution environment. I'm going to have to do a little bit of testing on why I can't do the why I can't make a new job template. Maybe it's because, all right, so the job templates, yeah, they're a part of an organization. So that doesn't make sense. I was thinking maybe I need like a global permission to do that. I'm so used to working as the administrator that sometimes you forget how that would work. This bothers me though. As much as I want to go on and test the inventory stuff, I want to figure this out. I feel like it's somewhat important. Add templates. Go to users. Actually, let me go to teams. This is permissions for the team itself, which all this is going to be is like you're an admin user, you're a member, or you can read. So that's not what I want. I mean, all this is doing is giving permissions to do stuff to that particular job template, but it's not allowing you to create job templates. Let's see for users what I could do. Test user 1. Just making an organization admin. Can admin? No. That's not what I guess just for giggles. Let's do this to another user. Actually, let's do it to a team. That's how I was originally wanting to do this. So let's go into test team 2. Roles. We're going to get rid of this one. Just for giggles, let's give it all of that. I noticed that you can't, I guess this is because I'm doing it from the team perspective instead of the organization perspective, because there wasn't the little button for admin. So we're going to grant it all the permissions. Log in as test user 3. And let's see what it looks like. Now I can make templates. So, curious. All right, let's go back to the original test user 1, and let's see if I'm right about inventory stuff. Because remember, we granted test user 1 access to one of the inventories and did not grant explicit access to the others. All right, so we're going to edit the job template for templates test. And for inventory, notice we only have test systems available. We do not have any of the other inventories because we have not explicitly given them the rights to use the inventory. So we'll obviously choose test systems, we'll save, and then to go back and see what it was we actually granted it, or what roles we granted test user 1, or that team rather. So we go to the inventories, test systems, and access. We see they have the access to use. So test user 1 would not be able to add anything to the inventory or take it away. They just have the access to use it. And of course, me as the administrator, I have access to all of the inventories. So that's why if I choose test systems, I have a variety to pick. And just to review the rights you have, I think it's use. You can update the inventory, and you can delete it, I believe. Let's see if I remember correctly. Okay, you can use it. Admin will be changing all aspects. Ad hoc commands. I have not really used ad hoc commands with the control node. You can read it and you can update it. So really, to delete it, you have to have the add. You may be able to delete it with update. Let's see what happens. So let me go back to the team rather than the user. See if update grants you the right to delete. So update and use. I imagine you would probably want to give it read as well. Go to inventories, test inventory. We cannot delete it, so I guess you do need to be admin to be able to do that. I guess you can read the inventory. All right, so for the objective itself, as far as my little assessment, I was able to create hosts, could assign systems a host. I'm going to consider this a pass for configuring access to inventories because we were able to configure the use permission, and we understand what update actually does, lets you update. It's not a full pass because I'm not super solid on all of the permissions, especially like getting the job template thing. That's weird. I need to poke around with that. I would like to think you don't need to grant every single permission to be able to create a job template, especially when you granted the workflow template and that gave you the button to be able to add it. So that seems kind of odd. Oh, configure inventory variables. I forgot about that. So, since we can edit this inventory, what you're able to do is configure host vars. Can I not edit this? Oh, I'm looking at the details. I thought I could update the inventory. All right, well, I'm going to consider my little, get the access right for inventories to not be a pass, because I clearly need to practice this a bit more. I can do it as admin and make the variable that I want because I have edit capabilities. But just like you would do with a host vars file or a group vars file, you can set a variable. Foo is, blah. And so that variable foo would be available to you to use in your with your playbooks and the like. So while I'm here, do want to go back to the access with this. They only have use. I thought that I granted the, did I not save it? Maybe I did it with a different team. Update and use. And while we're at it, we'll give it read as well. Update, use, read. All that looks right. Log in as test user 1. All right, so we're in test systems. Let's go to hosts, go to lab 1 internal. Does this mean that we can... All right, let me go to access. Update, use, read. So I would think update, unless that means you can just like sync your sources. What does this mean? We know we can't delete it. Yeah, I need to do some more testing. I could have the video go forever as I poke around with this, but I think that's neither useful for you, the viewers, or me, the learner. I just need to go back and really concentrate on it. So let me do my assessment again. So creating hosts, assigning them to groups, pass, make inventory variables. Was able to do that. Was able to make the machine credentials, and we tested that we could access the hosts because we ran the test playbooks and such. But configure access to inventories for using, I can pass that. I was able to get users to be able to actually use the inventories to put them to job templates, but giving users access outside of just giving them all access to just update inventories, at least is how I would interpret update inventories, that was not a pass, nor was being able to do job template access, which outside the scope of this, but still not a pass. So all is not lost. I do have a week to brush up on that, and that's why you do these practice sessions. Unfortunately, I started this process a little bit later than I normally do for the test, so I don't have as much time as I typically do. If you've looked at my other practice sessions, I talk about having like 2 and 3 weeks left, but just the way scheduling and such worked out, I don't have that luxury. So I'm trying to get as prepared as I can. So if you found the video useful, or you enjoyed it, or maybe you look at some of the pitfalls that I ran into, and that gives you some motivation to make sure that you yourself understand it better when you're preparing for the exam, make sure you do click like. I want to thank returning subscribers again for watching another video, and if you haven't subscribed, do click the button. Thank you for your time, and I will see you the next time.